Okay, so recording is starting. So let's talk about social structure. We've kind of talked about structure already this semester. I just don't know if I've explicitly defined it. On the slide here, the text at the bottom says that sociologists study the relationship between individual action and social structure. That's the sociological imagination, right? How our biography, how our individual life is shaped by or shapes the larger society that we live in. And this uh, focusing on this tension between what sociologists call structure and agency. So agency, um, uh, human agency is individual action. Uh, Sociologists are not the only scholars to think about this tension between individual agency and larger structures. Um, this is actually an age-old debate. So in the fields of um, philosophy and in the fields of religion, there's a age-old debate between what's called free will and determinism. So if you are Jewish or Christian or Muslim, you probably were introduced to a theology that in the beginning, sort of in Genesis, right, talks about like this tension between whether or not the life that we live is predetermined or predestined, or if we really have free will, if we can do anything we choose to do. Um, so religious scholars and theologians have been asking this question for centuries. Philosophers have been asking this question for centuries. And sociologists are interested in this question, like, how free are we? Like, can we do anything that we put our minds to? If we believe it, can we achieve it? Or are we constantly being constrained by things external to us? It's difficult to answer, to weigh um, to weigh in on this debate, or it's difficult to parse out which one matters more, structure or agency, determinism or free will. It's hard to say, like, it's hard to prove whether or not we're fully agentic as humans, like we can do anything we want, or if our lives are fully structured. So it's hard to say if one is more important than the other. Sociological research has consistently shown that social structures exist and that they limit, shape, constrain, and guide our lives and our choices and the behaviors, um, and our actions in powerful ways. So sociology makes the argument that structure matters, and it matters a lot. And this can be a difficult premise to accept in a world, in American society, in a Western world where we put a high value on individualism and free will and individual rights. Um, so so I bring this up just to point out that um, sociologists are not the only ones that are interested in this thing called structure. So let's talk about what is structure. First, I want to give you the definition that comes out of our textbook, and then I want to give you a definition uh, that comes out of a different sociological text that I think will be helpful as a supplement. So our book defines social structure. This is chapter 3. They say that you can think of social structure as the boundaries people confront as they make decisions. It's the boundaries that we confront as we make decisions. That's our textbook definition. Here's another definition um, that comes out of another intro to sociology textbook that I've used in the past, and I really like this definition. So I'll just read the text, the words in bold text here. Social structure can be defined as the external forces that provide the context for individual and group action. The external forces that provide context for individual and group action. In highlighted in the different colors, red, blue, green, and purple, are the important components of social structure. So when you go to chapter 3, you'll notice that these components of social structure are going to be talked about in different subsections. Structure, so sociology in general is like a very broad field of study, and social structure, I think, is a good example of this. The term social structure, sometimes when people think of structure, they think of macro level things, but social structure can either be macro or micro. Just think of social structure as something that's outside of you. It's these external forces. Things like status hierarchies or social institutions, these are big macro level things. And then roles and norms, which we haven't talked about yet this semester, these are more micro level components of social structure. So social structure, earlier this semester, I asked you all a question. I think it was your very first reflection. I asked you to whether or not you made a decision to come to college. And that was a question that was geared to get you to think about this tension between free will and these external forces. How much of your decision, your choice to come to college, was free will, and how much of it was these external constraints shaping your decision? So sociologists think of structure as being both a guide and a constraint. Hierarchies, where you fall in a hierarchy in society, different roles that you hold in society, different institutions that you navigate in society, they serve as guides, meaning that just like a user manual or any guide that you can think of, social structure provides us some instructions on how to live our life. If you've ever taken a psychology class, you'll know that the human brain only has a finite amount of energy to use, and we have millions of decisions that we have to make on any given day. And so in some ways, social structures limit the amount of decisions we have to come up with. I don't have to, if I'm born as a male and raised as a boy in this society, there are certain things I don't have to think about in terms of what do I want to wear, for instance, or how do I want to present myself. There are certain norms that are established for that. So it guides you, it gives you some directions on how to live your life. But social structure can also be a constraint. We'll talk more about roles, and especially gender roles, later in the semester. But even just the example I said, I'm born a male in society, I'm raised as a boy in a society. So I'm given all of these instructions on what I should like, on how I should behave, on the things I should take interest in. And what if me as an individual, I don't identify with that, which is the case for many transgendered individuals. Well, now what is a guide for many Americans, it feels like a constraint, an external force that is constraining me. Okay, so over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about these different components of social structure. Today, I'm just going to focus on status hierarchies, which is highlighted in red here. We'll talk about roles and norms next week. And then there's a video on Canvas in this week's folder that will talk about what a social institution is. And I think that after hearing this lecture and then watching that video, you'll be able to understand how an institution fits in this definition. But let's just talk about hierarchies as one part of structure. And again, structure involves a lot of different things that are external to us that guide and constrain our behavior. But we're just going to talk about status hierarchies in this lesson today. Okay, so a social hierarchy or a status hierarchy is a common feature in almost every human civilization. And on the slide here, I have a picture of a status hierarchy in, or a type of status hierarchy in ancient Egyptian civilization. So I use this as an example because I think it's context, historical context that most of us have been introduced to. And even if you're not a student of Egyptology or ancient Egyptian history, I think you'll understand the historical references. So on this image, they have illustrated a hierarchy in the form of a pyramid, and I think that that's a good visual to keep in mind. So sociologists are interested in hierarchies because hierarchies are this very important piece of our social structure. Again, things that are external to any one individual, but that impact individuals. Social hierarchies and where you stand in a status hierarchy, it impacts your life chances, and your social relationships. So let's just think about ancient Egypt and ancient Egyptian society as an example. At the top of the social hierarchy, there is pharaohs, or the pharaoh and maybe his or her, the king or queen and their immediate family would be at the top, would be the highest status individuals in that society. At the bottom of the status hierarchy would be a class of individuals that were slaves. None of us have lived in this society, but you can imagine if you were born a daughter of a slave, you're going to have a very different life than if you're born a daughter of a pharaoh. Even if you're born sort of Egyptian middle class and you're a daughter of a merchant, you're going to have a different life trajectory than if you're born the daughter of a slave. Now, again, most of us in our society, in our era, we believe that individuals have free will, and especially in American society, we believe that this is a equal opportunity society, that anybody who puts their mind to it should be able to get ahead in life. The circumstances of your parents, your family, your neighborhood, they won't matter if you can work your way up in society, if you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's how we think of hierarchies maybe in American society. Like, it's okay that a hierarchy exists because it's not fixed, because people can move positions. But we know from even just a skimming of history that in ancient Egyptian society, oh, excuse me, forgot to put my phone on silent. In ancient Egyptian society, that wasn't true. If you were born the daughter of a slave and you were the most ambitious young girl ever, and you had all the talent in the world, your lot in life was going to be limited, was going to be constrained based on the status that you held in that society. So that's what, when sociologists use the word life chances, that's what we're referring to. What are the chances that you have to live the life that you envision? What are the chances that you have to have good schooling, to get nurturing and love and support from your family, to have access to good health and nutrition, things like this? Where you are in a status hierarchy is going to be very different. People at the bottom of a status hierarchy are not going to have the same access to valued resources in a society. Where you are in a status hierarchy also shapes your social relationships. And you can think about this in the ancient Egyptian context too. The daughter of the pharaoh is not going to play games with the daughter of farmers or the daughter of slaves. And again, in our modern context, we have the belief that that networking is important, and it's not what you know, it's who you know, and just go out there and meet some people. But what this framework is suggesting is that the family that you were born into, the neighborhood that you grew up in, the class status maybe of your parents, your racial or ethnic heritage, your gender, your sexuality, all of these different statuses that you hold in society, if you take a sociological framework, what it suggests is those things will also determine the type of people that you'll be able to be in relationship with. So there's some famous research done in the sociology of dating, families, and relationships, that has shown time and time again that people tend to date and marry people of their same socioeconomic background. And so, just like in ancient Egypt, if there was like no chances that the daughter of a slave was going to marry the son of the pharaoh, in our modern society, it is still true that people tend to pair with people of their same economic status. And you may wonder, well, why would that happen in a world where anyone can love and date anyone that they choose? But again, it's the family that you're born into, the school that you go to, the neighborhood that you live in, the shops that you shop at, the places you go for vacation. All of those are going to steer your life towards certain potential interactions, certain settings with certain people, and it's going to steer you away from interactions and settings with other people. And so that's an example of how a hierarchy can impact our social relationships. And then finally, sociologists are interested in social hierarchies because social hierarchies are fundamentally about inequality in a society. And this form of inequality of this kind of pecking order where some people are higher in this sort of pyramid and some people are lower, this also comes with it group dynamics that can lead to some conflict. And this is if you remember the Marx lesson, you'll feel some of Marx's spirit in this. But there's some evidence that suggests, so social hierarchies, status hierarchies exist across societies. In this example, in ancient Egypt, this is just based on occupational status or class status, but there were probably hierarchies based on gender or sex. There was probably hierarchies based on nationality. There were probably other ways that people stratified themselves. What happens over time, and this is one of the reasons sociologists are interested in hierarchies, what happens over time is that even systems where the movement between statuses is more open, over time, people start to close themselves off, especially people at the top of a hierarchy. They begin to operate in a way that monopolizes their position and kind of hoards valued resources. And so sociologists say that not only do hierarchies impact our lives, our life chances, our social relationships, they also involve differentials in terms of power and privilege. So power is the ability to influence other people, to influence the behavior, the ideas of other people. Privilege, when sociologists use the term privilege, a privilege is the right or the ability to have access to opportunities or valued resources in a society. And so what tends to happen with status hierarchies is people who are at the top of status hierarchies begin to operate like a dominant group, and they subordinate other people in society by hoarding access to valued resources, by acting in ways that benefit their own group position, without thinking of the whole, or without any sort of effort to create a succession plan, meaning to ensure that there are levers in place that help people who are like really ambitious to climb the social hierarchy. The other reason that sociologists care about hierarchies, and this is true for social hierarchies, but also the other parts of social structure. Just saying that people are at a different rank, just saying that people are unequal, like at a basic level, that doesn't matter. It's okay if someone's better than someone else at something. Inequality in general is not the issue. The issue sociologists take with this form of inequality is that it persists over time without any real kind of rationale. So social structures, institutions, hierarchies, different roles that we have in society are established by humans through interaction. So people at some point create social systems, create status hierarchies based on um, gender. For instance, in the 1950s, right, the sort of traditional male breadwinner model was a social role that was decided upon. Like men are going to go to work, women are going to take care of the domestic realm. Um, Humans are going to always find ways to distinguish each other, put each other into groups, and that's interesting. But what's really interesting in this context for sociologists is why do these distinctions that we make, why do they live so long? Like why do they persist so long? And the real reason that social structure, it's not that it matters more than our free will, but the reason that you won't hear me talking a lot about free will and agency is because most of us were born into a world, we're born at a time when there's certain institutions around us, there are certain roles in society laid out for us. There are certain status hierarchies that are already fixed in place. We inherit this stuff and we try to navigate the world around it. But one of the things that sociological research points out is that these systems, once they're erected, these structures, it's really, really hard to change them, especially for any one individual to push against them. And it's really hard within one generation for even collections of individuals to fight against them. And so this last slide kind of speaks to this point that social structures take on a permanence. They endure over time. This is important back to my original point that the structures guide our lives. Humans, we can only make so many decisions on any given day, and having structures in place, having major institutions, organizations, having an established set of roles and norms in a society, that helps civilization move forward. It's necessary. At the same time, if you're born into a world where the structures around you don't allow you to thrive, then you may wish that you could change them. And you may find yourself frustrated because structures don't change that quickly. And here's 3 reasons on the slide why structures do not change very quickly. The first reason, and I'll just list them and I'll give you some examples. The first reason is that they generate their own interest groups. The second reason is that social structures, any of the components of social structures, generate broad public support for existing hierarchies and institutions. And then this third point, pathway dependency, that's gonna be the topic of my Topic Tuesday video this week. Pathway dependency is the idea that sometimes we do things the way we've always done them because it's easier than to think of a new way to do them, essentially. And I'll give you some examples of that in the video that I post tomorrow. But really quick, just to kind of wrap this lesson up, I want to focus on like a specific example. I know I've been talking kind of broadly throughout this lesson, but let's think about college. Curry College as an organization or as an institution, or college in general as like as a major part of our educational system. And so when you watch the video on Canvas that talks about institutions, they talk about there's these major institutions in society that structure our life. There's the economy, there's the education system, there's healthcare system, there's governments, et cetera. So let's just talk about college, because it's an example that I think is relevant to all of us. And I think it drives this point home. You can either respond to this question I'm about to ask by unmuting yourself, or you could drop your answer in the chat. To say that something has a interest group, it means that there's some individuals who have a stake in who have a stake or a vested interest in seeing this entity continue. So let me put the question like this. What are the groups of people, who are the individuals or groups of individuals that have a vested interest in seeing college stick around? So college is a major institution. It's been around for a long time. The way we do college hasn't changed very much. The pandemic has changed it a little bit. But who are the people that would maybe not fight, but who are the people that would be up in arms if college as we know it, the entire industry of higher education went away tomorrow? Can you think of who an interest group would be?
Like the professors who like work at the colleges.
Yes. Perfect. So that's I'm a good example of someone who is an interest group, and there is not just the faculty at oh, Noah, you said educator also. Yeah, so the educators. So it's not just the people who work at Curry. We want to keep our job. There's also like academics all across the country and across the globe, other sociologists, for instance, professors in other areas that I connect with. That's sort of my peer group. It's college is my job, but it's structured my life in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think educators around the country would be up in arms if college just went away. Kaylee, this is a great example. So Kaylee said seniors who are almost done with their degree is an example of an interest group. And I would add that all of you that are currently enrolled college students are probably the biggest interest group that would be up in arms if college disappeared overnight. One, you want to finish your degree, but then also, especially the seniors, not so much just the degree you want to finish. You want to know that when you enter the workforce, that like that degree will be there's some status that comes with that you want to guarantee that you get. Those are good examples. There's a couple more interest groups I can think of. Other interest groups. So we have educators. Let's also add staff and administrators. Anyone that works for a college, that's an interest group. Any of the students currently enrolled in a college, that's an interest group. It's another group of people that would that don't want to see college go away. We could probably add high school seniors in there. There's probably a cohort of high schoolers who are already doing pre-SAT prep and applying to schools and summer programs at their local college, things like that. I also think that alumni, you could argue, are an interest group because there's probably maybe not millions, but hundreds of thousands of students currently enrolled in college. But there's millions of adults who already completed college that get a status boost in our society for being a degree holder. So alumni all across the world would be up in arms to hear that their college was closing or that all colleges were going away. Another interest group that may not jump out right away to you is employers. So not only are you all going to leave here and hope to find a job where your degree will be valued, but employers around the country believe that hiring a college educated workforce is going to be beneficial. So even employers would be a part of this interest group. All of those people represent individuals and groups of individuals that would participate in social action, collective action to protect the current structure, the current status quo. We would be writing letters to our senators. We would be, protesting, boycotting certain services. That's what I mean by that group would be up in arms. So there's a lot of people, and in that group, by the way, we're talking about the most educated Americans, professionally some of the most successful Americans. So we're talking about a powerful interest group here, college, people affiliated with college. Um, so if you are someone who thinks college is so stupid and why do we have to do this? And you wanted to organize some people to rally against college, to abolish college, you'd have a hell of a time because there's so many of us that would fight to keep it, to fight to keep the status quo. The second point is that structures generate broad public support. And think about college. We named all the individuals who have a direct vested interest in college, but why does college, why does university loom so large in the American imagination? Like, why do we value college so much? There was a point when, so in your lifetime, in my lifetime, I think college has become the expectation. Like, you will go to high school and you will go to college. In older generations, it used to be the case that college was like elite and it was exclusive. Yeah, it's like, how did we get to a point where we love college so much? And I think that that speaks to this. I don't have an answer to that, but it speaks to this second point, is that in American society, we just value college. We value the idea of having a college educated population. We value the idea of young people getting a college experience, however you want to define that. There's a lot of people who have never been to college but have a favorite sports team, right? Someone who loves UConn basketball but has never attended UConn. So there's a lot of ways that college has solidified itself in the social structure of American civilization, and it's going to last a long time. I think that the pandemic was a really good example of how. So on one hand, let me stop this screen share. On one hand, social structures do persist over time, and it's not easy for any one person or any small group of people through collective action to change things. But there are these massive shifts that can happen in a society that can challenge the status quo. And I think COVID-19 and the social distancing requirements, the way that they've impacted the way that we do college is kind of challenging the status quo of college a little bit. But if you haven't noticed already, and what I'm noticing is for a brief moment, I thought that there was going to be this like revolution in the way that we do college. But I think that what happened instead is that colleges, parents, students, their families, employees, like, we all just rallied together to get back to the way we used to do it. I mean, online is very different than the way classes were last semester, but the way we do college hasn't changed all that much. So I say all that to say that social structures persist over time, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that they do persist over time. And what that means for us as individuals is, it's a little bit disappointing to find out that the things about your world that you don't like are going to be hard to change. That's part of the takeaway to this. But there is room for change. There is room to challenge social structures, or to change them, to renegotiate hierarchies, things like that. But it's difficult. It's something that any one individual, it's like a David and Goliath situation. Any one individual, in theory, could dismantle a whole system, but in general, it takes lots of people, lots of collective action to push against social structure or to change a structure.